Hello, beautiful. Welcome back to another episode of the No BS Human Design Podcast. I have a very special treat for you today. I'm officially inviting you to share in my latest obsession over the past year. I've been doing some deep work, some deep dive into my gene keys. And although I don't feel the pull to become the go-to expert in it, I definitely use it a lot in my chart readings now. And I have found it to be so helpful for whatever pieces don't click with you within your human design chart. So naturally, this was like a couple months ago. I asked the universe to send me someone who was like an epic gene keys expert. And I specifically wanted a female because, I will bring men on the podcast and I would bring male experts on if I felt a real connection with them. But I'm all about supporting small women-owned business. So I specifically asked for a woman who was a Gene Keys expert. Days after, I go to listen to my friend Mariah's podcast, Spiritually Curious. Y'all probably know Mariah if you've been around for a while. She's been on here a couple times. And lo and behold, she has this incredible Gene Keys expert as the episode that week. And I listened to it and I'm soaking up everything she's saying. And I'm like, oh my God, she is it. I have to have her on the podcast. So that's who I have here today with us. This is definitely one that you might want to tune into the YouTube for. It's like very workshop style. So you can check the notes below, grab your gene keys. It's not called a body graph. I always forget what it's called. It's like a chart, kind of. But grab that and then follow along on YouTube if that feels good, if the visual feels good. If not, get all the audio from here. And then if you want to go back to the visual on YouTube, then check that out after. But it's very workshop style. So I love it. It's going to be so informative, so educational, and revisit it as much or as little as you need. A little bit about Mariah. See, now I met Maria through Mariah. Maria Henning is her name. She's a 2/5 emotional manifesting generator, human design, and gene keys expert. Super knowledgeable in astrology too, if I do say so myself. She's like a wealth of information. I mean, it astounds me how much she knows about all these systems. And she's the creator of an app called Cosmic Compendium. And it's a one-of-a-kind software designed for human design and gene key professionals, where it houses all of this insane amount of material that it's like at some point probably going to really be beneficial for me when my mind doesn't explode just looking at it. But it's amazing. It's an amazing platform. I can't wait to see what it turns into after all the work she's putting into it. Now, before we dive in today, I want to officially let you know that our first ever in-person retreat is open for booking. We are partially sold out already. And I say we because I'm doing it alongside my beautiful friend. And you probably also know her from here, Viola Moron. She's a crystal Reiki master. We are hosting an in-person retreat in Florida, a little north of Miami in the jungle. It's very gorgeous. It's very intimate, very sacred, nature filled. I am just like obsessed. Viola went there for a weekend herself because she lives in Miami just to kind of test it out. And her mind was blown. Like we knew from all the videos she sent me that weekend that that was the spot. So we officially booked it. November 7th through November 10th is when we'll be hosting our retreat there. And think of it as Reiki and energy removing for blocks, meet human design, conscious feminine community, subconscious release techniques, literally transforming you from the inside out, all while being held in a very safe, supported, intimate group of women who, let's face it, every time I've gone to anything like this, even if it's a business mastermind retreat, you leave having connections unlike any other you've ever had in your life. So the goal of this intimate group of women is to really cultivate that sense of sisterhood and heal a lot of the feminine relationship wounds that we have just from the general society we were raised in. So I wouldn't be surprised. I'm actually betting on you will walk away with at least one best friend, if not many more, who are also walking alongside you in this spiritual growth path that can feel really lonely when we are first starting out on it. So if you're interested, head to the notes in the show notes below. I'll put the description there. You can't book online. You can only book through us. So reach out to me. Let me know if you want to hop on a call with either myself or V, and we can talk to you about it more in depth. Or if you selected what room you want, shoot us a message and then we'll work through it from there. So, really excited about the retreat. Extra excited about Gene Keys today. Go download your Gene Keys map. I literally still can't remember what it's called. It's like a holographic chart, whatever, your Gene Keys chart. See, guys, I'm not the expert. That's why I have Maria here. So go download it, get pen, paper, take some notes, and enjoy this wonderful conversation about my new favorite topic, Gene Keys. Welcome to the No BS Human Design Podcast. I'm Adriana Keefe, human design coach and motivational speaker. I went through my quarter-life crisis in my 20s and had to learn how to navigate through finding what I was meant to be doing with my life. I refused to believe in the culture that said we were all meant to have the same path and boring careers until we retire and die. And along my journey, I found human design, a system that reveals your energetic blueprint, showing you where and how to access your body's consciousness and how to live as your true self. Human design changed my life, so I started sharing it with others and changing their lives, but we were all finding the same problem: a lack of resources that explain the system in easy and useful ways. So I created this show where we dive deep into the lessons of the human design system without the BS and the noise you find on the internet. Listen in for lessons in human design, finding your purpose, manifestation and spiritual practices, human design within business, and so much more. We connect with other experts in the human design and spiritual realm in a refreshingly honest way to help you find your way along your spiritual path and live this life with intention. It's time to let go of the societal expectations of being and let yourself find abundance through being uniquely you. Let's get started. Oh, I'm so excited for this. I've been looking forward to this for like the 2 months or something we've had it on the calendar. I have Maria Henning here, who is not only human design, but also a Gene Keys like mad woman. Like the information that you hold blows my mind. But then I see you're a 2-5 and I'm like, well, that makes sense. So I'd love for you to say hi and introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about who you are.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. So sweet. So I'm Maria Henning. I go by Mari and I teach Gene Keys and human design. And I have a Gene Keys and human design app for professionals. And yeah, I'm originally from Venezuela. I grew up in Houston. I moved here when I was 8. I'm currently in Houston now. This is where we're doing our recording. And yeah, I'm stoked to have this conversation. Gene Keys is like my favorite topic. And also super excited, like I said, to be doing a video podcast. I think this is so much fun. So yeah, thanks so much for having me.
It is so fun. And if you're listening on the audio version, we are going to share our screen to talk a little bit more about Gene Keys so that you can see what we're talking about. So head over to the YouTube if you would like the visual aspect of it. Maria, what is
Yes.
your human design?
Oh, that's right. I'm a 2-5 emotional manifesting generator. So single definition and emotional center, sacral, root, splenic center, and throat center defined for those of you that are super nerdy and want to know about that. Quad right as well, which is a lot of fun.
Ooh, I'm a quad
Um,
left. That's
oh, there
interesting.
you go. Nice. Facing opposite ways. I'm a right angle cross of penetration 4. So 54 is my conscious sun. And when it comes to astrology, which I'm now remembering that you asked, I was like, what were the other questions you asked me? I'm a Capricorn sun, Scorpio moon, and Aquarius rising. And those are basically all of my placements because 6 of my placements are in Capricorn, 4 are in Scorpio, and the other 2 are in Aquarius. So that's pretty much it,
Wow.
except my Sag North node. So yeah,
Wow.
those are
So you and I
that's my big
share the
3.
Scorpio moon together. I did
Oh,
that.
amazing.
And I
Nice.
find it so fascinating that you're a Capricorn and you're quad right. That must be an interesting dynamic internally.
Yeah, I actually recorded my own podcast episode about running my business
Did
as a
you?
quad right. Yeah. If you catch my little puppy snoring, that's the sound that you might have just heard.
I didn't hear him.
Okay, she's having a good time over there. Yeah, I think it's such an interesting combination, and I actually have another podcast interview scheduled with a friend also about some other funny things in my chart that seem to be um, contradictory in a way. But I find that once you know your own charts, and I'm sure you've probably had this experience, like it all just makes so much sense for like the complexity of who you are. You're just like, yep, this makes so much sense for me. But yeah, it's fun because I feel like my Capricorn, which is all in the 12th house. So I have my six Capricorn planets are all in the 12th house of like spirituality and the unknown and the subconscious. So I sort of joke that to me is like super spiritual, but make it structured. So I have all of this like structurally spiritual energy, and I have all these systems. So much of what I teach, besides, I guess I should probably say that I teach like business systems and strategy as well, because I have like a whole slew of courses that are literally just like my Notion templates and like my podcast system and, launching and recording systems. So I teach a lot of the system stuff. So I find that because I have all that organization, then I can be in my quad right Manny Gen self and just sort of like flow. And then I can always come back to like my really, organized ways of being that support me. And the joke that I always find myself saying, I'm like, I'll be on a call with my assistant, teaching her something new, onboarding her into something else. And I'm like, oh, I wish this was more organized. And she's like, you have no idea how organized you are. Like nobody that I've ever worked for is like this level of psychotic when it comes to like organization,
That's
especially like
Capricorn.
and like for somebody else, because it's like it's not even for me, it's like for my assistant. I'm like, here's the exact process like for you to follow, and like it's already always there for you, and it's a template, so just like duplicate it whenever you need to do it. Like it's so psychotic. But yeah, I really love all those things. So yeah, that's
I
how
dig
that's
it.
how I find that it works for me. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go listen to that podcast episode because although I'm the
Mm,
opposite, my
yeah.
vocation is in gate 2, which feels like I'm still trying to really
Mm,
wrangle the sit back, receive feminine stuff that I've been trying to implement for years now, and the
sure.
structure and the masculine. It feels really all over the place at times. So I'm gonna have to go back and listen to that episode. Maybe I'll link it in the show notes for everyone because now everyone's probably gonna want to do the same thing.
That would be sweet. Thank you. Yeah. And I think again, we're just very complex individuals, right? So you have this like quad left, but then you have this like feminine, energy vocation. And there's other things to gate too that aren't just like sit back and receive as well. But we have those like balance, those things to balance within ourselves. So yeah, I find that
Mhm.
super fascinating. I'm curious to see how it all plays out for you.
1000%. Me too. Maria,
Right.
me too. So I found Gene Keys. I found it a little while ago, but I was still so immersed in really understanding human design that I knew my Manny Gen self, if I diverted, I would screw everything up and I would fall out of integrating and go back into the binging content. So
Mm,
I didn't actually pick it up until I want to say last summer, I think. And it has changed the way that I integrate these energetics into my life and the way that I even do human design chart readings, the way that I work with my clients, because I found that the gates alone in human design, while you can put descriptions to them, they can still feel very off for some people. And then when
mm,
it comes to the gene key, I don't know if you call it definitions or descriptions of them, it almost feels like an adjective or a way of feeling that someone can connect to. And that for me feels easier when it comes to like in my shadow
mm,
here or in my gift. And it really has helped me stay on more of an integrative line path, all of that. So it's blowing my mind. I freaking love it. I would love for you to introduce them to what the gene keys even are and
yeah.
maybe a little bit of background about how they stemmed from human design.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And I'm glad that it's like blowing your mind and changing your life, because that's typically the typically the
Love it.
experience. Yeah, they're amazing. So the gene keys are an archetypal system that differentiates from human design, although it is related in a few simple ways. So I like to just start with just comparing the two, because I think it just helps to understand where human design gives you a chart that describes the mechanical manual of your vehicle, right? We're seeing, how centers connect to each other, and therefore how do you move energy from one place to another, and how do you manifest action? If you look further into human design, we have like PHS and rave psychology. So how do what's your environment? What's your digestion? What's your view? So very focused on the body, human design, how your human was designed, right? We're looking at the vehicle. Gene Keys more shows you archetypes of challenges and breakthroughs you'll experience, and more about your hero's journey and your spiritual path to growth. So human design is like the vehicle manual, and then Gene Keys is the map. the GPS sort of system to, not even GPS, really more like the archetypal map of what you're going to face. And it's actually, if we take that description, then to make it even simpler, it can be really simple. The Gene Keys chart, so the difference between human design and the Gene Keys charts, the Gene Keys chart will show you a 3-part journey to your spiritual enlightenment. So we have 3 different sequences that make up that little map. We have the activation sequence that is self as a spiritual path. So looking at yourself and your personal challenges and breakthroughs as a path to spiritual growth. We then have the Venus sequence, which is in red, and it's looking at relationships as a spiritual path. So how do you grow and evolve and become enlightened through your relationships, which I'm sure we all know that they can be very challenging. And then looking at career as a spiritual path. That's the last sequence called the Pearl sequence. And so the teaching there is, once you know you, then you can relate. Then once you know you and you can relate, then you can share your gifts with the rest of the world. And then it all sort of starts all over again. So it's this sort of archetypal journey of these same sort of frequencies that you're going to face in these different areas of your life. And where human design sort of shines in its depth, because there's so much information, right? There's like 13 conscious placements, 13 unconscious placements, 64 possible gates that you can have. Are they defined or undefined? Are they conscious or unconscious? Are they a full channel or not? There's so much. I've said like 2 things about the millions of things that are in human design. Gene Keys shines in its simplicity. There's only 11 spheres, really 14, because 3 of them are like blended. So they appear in 2 different places. So only 14 placements to look at, really. And each of those placements will have 1 gene key and 1 line. And so where they connect, so let me know if that makes sense. But where they connect is the gene keys are looking at the same 64 archetypes that are embodied by the gates, that are the same 64 archetypes that come from the I Ching hexagrams from many thousands of years ago, which is really this, to sort of blend it all together. The I Ching hexagrams are 64 combinations of yin and yang energy, and they are the codes of the universe. Basically, that's like how simple it really is. And the fascinating thing about the 64 hexagrams is that their mathematical structure is basically identical to human DNA, with the pairs, the base pairs, and like the double helix. Even the double helix appears in the I Ching, which is crazy because we didn't discover the double helix until this past century. And we exist in a 64-bit matrix. Think about 64 like 8 octaves, right? And so in music we look at 8 times 8, we look at 64. In coding we look at the 64-bit matrix. Like everywhere we exist in these sort of like 8 by 8 64-bit matrices, and this one is about the codes of the universe and like human behavior and change. And what human design did is, the guy who received the information, Ra Uru Hu, he was able to map out those 64 different archetypes to exact pieces of the zodiac pie. So exactly which degree of what, so like my Capricorn sun, which is in, I forget how many degrees, like I think it's like 18 degrees of Capricorn, is exactly in 54.2, so we have that exact sort of slice of the pie. And then it also gave us our unconscious, astrological chart. That's another human design thing. But then the Gene Keys was able to build off of that, because the Gene Keys also looks at our astrology, both on the day that we were born and 88 degrees before we were born. So a lot of jargon, a lot of stuff, but to keep it really simple, human design shows you how your energy works. So really practical stuff, how you take action, how you make decisions, how your body likes to move and rest and eat. And the Gene Keys is, here's your path to spiritual growth. Here are the challenges you're going to face. Here's, how you're going to use yourself, your relationships, and your career as paths to your enlightenment.
Dad, you're a good teacher. You know that?
Thank you. It's almost like I teach a whole course about this topic.
Like, you're selling me on your shit. I'm just like, I don't know what she's teaching right now, but I feel like I need it. That is, yes. I love that you gave so much background too. I mean, I was realizing that we could have pulled up the hexagram for them to see, but that's okay.
Oh,
for you
I'm happy to do it.
overachievers, you can go check it out and listen to what Maria just said.
I'm happy to pull it up if you want me to.
Sure. You have, I think I gave you screen sharing, so you should be good to go.
Let's do it. And you can ask me any other question while I pull this up if you would like. Okay, so I'm just going to pull up my human design chart, and we can look at yours too. But this is the mandala of that the human design gave us. And if you just sort of zoom in quickly, you'll see on the outside are four quarters. That's a human design thing. So the quarter of initiation, the quarter of civilization, that's a human design thing. But then right within that ring, we have the zodiac signs. So we're starting at Aries, going all the way around, totally normal. And then within that ring, we have the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching. So the hexagrams, if you guys want to see, are, can I zoom in even further? Barely, but these groups of six lines. Hexa, 6 gram means to hang, but it's referring to the lines. And we're seeing these totally unique combinations all the way around of 64 archetypes, and they all have an elemental association, they have an amino acid association, they have a part of the body that they're associated with, an animal, so many different crystal, lots of different associations, but these are very, very fun to play with. And then within you have the human design chart, which you can see if we look at yours. We have the human design chart here on the left, and then we have the gene keys in the center. So the gene keys is like this map, right? So we have this and there's little arrows and there's a direction that you go, versus this is, this is your body. We're looking at your body and how the energy moves from one place to the other. So anyway, just a quick visual. We can return to it at any time.
I love it. And just a little side note, if anyone was ever wondering how the transits come into play with gates and whatnot, the mandala that she just pulled up, that is what we're talking about.
Right.
Okay, so I'd love to hear when you feel like human design versus gene keys for someone or for you. Like, when would you reference one versus the other?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think where I thought you were going to ask is when should you go to one or the other? And I was like, that's up to you, pure intuition. And because the Gene Keys is so random, and by that I mean just small, I think the Gene Keys folks themselves have under 100,000 followers on Instagram. So it's like a very unknown, if you're listening to this, you're like one of the lucky ones that knows about this system. Cause it's a crazy random unique system, perfect for an Aquarius rising like me who wants to be different. It's so great.
I'm an Aquarius sun on my design, so I definitely resonate with that.
Nice. Love that. Yeah, love that. But yeah, so when would I reference one or the other? I primarily am a Gene Keys person. I just ended up just fully gravitating there, which I thought was funny. I learned it because it just happened to be included in the coaching certification I was going through. I was going through a human design coaching certification, and I was like, human design, that's going to be my thing. And then I ended up just really falling in love with the Gene Keys and just couldn't really get it out of my head. And that's really, I don't even really know when that shift happened. It just I just naturally gravitated to that. And that's really been my interest for the last couple of years. So typically when people are coming to me, they know that I am the Gene Keys girl. So they're coming to me for that. But I actually just did a human design reading yesterday. I'll do maybe one a month or something like that. And it really is just, I think the simple answer is when people are wanting to know why, anything body physical related, why do I feel this way? Or even feeling can sometimes really be attributed to Gene Keys stuff, to your point of feeling. But I guess I guess it really depends on the moment. Typically people are coming to me for Gene Keys stuff for oh, I want to know my purpose. So we go through the activation sequence, or I want to know my career, journey. So we go through the Pearl sequence, and then they'll say a comment oh, but I always find that this, that, the other. And then I'm like, well, that's because you're a split definition in human design. Let's talk about that. So it's it's small moments like that. And really there's no other great examples, but it's truly when it needs to be explained mechanically, then I go to human design, but when we're thinking about, again, what I like about Gene Keys is that it's so simple, right? It's one place to look for your life's work, one place to look for your purpose, one place to look for your, vocation, just very cut and dry, which I really like. Yeah, we're typically looking at something like that. And then anything more sort of nuance, we'll typically go to human design to sort of layer that on top. That was a very everywhere answer, but I hope that answered your question.
That made perfect sense, because I'm piecing that together in my head when it came to my own mechanics and how I functioned and why I hit functional burnout and all of that, knowing my
Mm,
centers, knowing my energy, knowing my response, that made a world of difference. And
yeah.
then I felt like, when you're so immersed in your own work, you need like something outside of you to see your blind spots. For
Yeah.
me, I felt like Gene Keys was that blind spot detector. And I think that's
Mm,
why I was so intrigued by it, because I was like, oh, I never saw gate 8 that way, but I feel
hmm.
that. I totally feel that about me,
Yeah.
like anything. And I think it was really helpful for me to finish putting the puzzle pieces together. How have you
Yeah.
used the Gene Keys in your own life, like actually used them as reference for things, especially in work?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I to sort of say more about gene keys that I think we alluded to earlier, but we didn't really explain further. And then that sort of helps to how I use it. The difference between gene keys, human design, and the hexagrams is sort of like we add on layers each time. So the hexagrams were just these 64 archetypes. So, the archetype of like, say, my conscious sun is like the marrying maiden. So like the really ambitious, like, concubine that like uses her connections to like sleep her way to the top to become empress. It's really talking about like ambition and things like that. That what I love about all these systems is that they're also very focused on like the mundane and using just like normal human affairs as paths to enlightenment. We don't need to like go isolate ourselves and like the Himalayas and go try to
On a
ascend
silent
into
retreat. Yeah.
our rainbow bodies. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Although that's lovely and I would love that.
Same.
But that'd be great. But yeah, then the human design system fixed it to the sky. And so now we can see, well, which one's mine and where. So not only did it fix it to the hexagram wheel like we looked at, I guess I can share my screen
Yeah, I was
again
gonna say if you
for
want to pull
those.
up yours, if that would help you walk through like your own stuff, you
Sure.
could.
Yeah. But yeah, so not only did it fix it to the sky, here you can see my like 6 Capricorn placements hanging
Mm.
out. It also fixed it to the body. So, I have all these placements in 54. Where's 54 in the chart? It's right here. 54, the marrying maiden, like I was saying, and the root center, it sort of put it somewhere in the body. And so and then it gave it a mechanical purpose. So, 54 in this example would be it's going to move energy from the root center to the splenic center for like a very particular purpose. In this case, the ambition to get noticed by someone higher up in the society to improve the conditions for the tribe. And that has very practical day to day implications as well. And then the gene keys said, great, love that. But what energy are you like using this in? So if we zoom out a bit and we look at 54, it says, awesome. So you have 54, which is ambition. And in the gene keys, it takes on a new name. It's called the serpent's path. So now we have 3 names. We have the marrying maiden, we have the gate of ambition, and then we have the gene key of the serpent's path. Gene keys says, awesome. You have 54. Are you using it in a shadow frequency, which in this case is greed? Are you using it in a gift frequency, which in this case is aspiration? I wish I could highlight. Or are you using it in a acidic or divine expression, which in this case is ascension? So that sort of 3-part path of like shadow gift city is really the sort of like one of the many like really important downloads and new teachings from the gene keys. We have a path from a shadow state of suffering to a human state of like gift and service and genius to an enlightened state of, divine gift and sort of connectedness to all and things like that. So anyway, just wanted to say a little bit more about that because how I use it for me is what it feels like is mostly passive in the sense that I just have my lens on all the time of gene keys. Like I just look at the world this way. And I'm sure that you do too. Like you look at the world through the perspectives of human design, maybe even gene keys and astrology as well. And you're just seeing everything through this 64-bit matrix, of everything can sort of be explained in this energy. Like today, I did an interview with one of my students who had some really amazing wins from one of my other programs. And they said they once they committed to something, they felt a lot of lightness around it. And I was like, that's funny. Gene key 29 is the gate of commitment, and its pairing partner is gene key 30, which is the gift of lightness. So it's like literally like the
Yep.
two together. So I just always see it in that way. And honestly, that's sort of the main way that you're meant to engage with the gene keys is just continual contemplation. We have human design's prescription is to experiment with it. So try out your strategy and authority. By the way, that's another one of the ways I always use human design. And minimum, if you're going to work with the gene keys, you have to know your human design strategy and authority. Like that's just really important. But yeah, it's like human design is like experiment with it. Like try eating, according to your determination. Like try, like paying attention to this or whatever, using your motivation, using your view, whatever. The gene keys is more like just contemplate it, just think about it, and then don't think about it for a bit, and then think about it again. And like it's really, and they have a more they have a very gentle approach to it, but they have a slightly more descriptive way to engage with contemplation, namely mental, emotional, then physical. So mentally understanding it first, then emotionally feeling something different, and then physically taking a new action. And that's like then putting your contemplation in action. So that's the main way that I use it. But I have done so much more. I also do more active stuff with it too. So one of the ways that I often use it is I just go back to it and I contemplate it like actively, in the sense of like, I'm working on something or working on a launch or creating content. And I'm like, let me just go to my gene keys and see what's there, like see what's happening there. If I'm ever in a state of shadow, so shadow states are always states of victimhood, so like poor me, I don't have power here, like I'll do some like power journaling, which is like I'll write out all the affirmations of like through my gene keys, like I am this energy, like I am the voice of initiative, which is like my purpose, like I am the voice of awakening, like da 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 da. Or I'll do my EFT tapping process, where I will then do EFT tapping, working through the shadows and then stepping into the gifts and like programming in and like coding my body with the frequencies of the cities. Which earlier you said descriptions or definitions, those you can use that same word, you can use those words, or you can use the word frequency, right? Shadow frequency, gift frequency, Siddhic frequency. That's really what we're working with, these archetypal frequencies. So I do a lot of that sort of like tapping work, to code my body with the higher frequencies of the genes. And then a couple other ways that I'll do it, particularly in the activation sequence, there are some somatic applications of the gene keys. So like embodiment practices and like the two unconscious sides of the activation sequence, unconscious sun and earth. If anyone knows what I'm talking about, you'll know this, are talking about the health of the body. Like the radiance is your unconscious sun, and then purpose is like there's a place in your body where it lies. Like I said, for me, it's my voice. So I do a lot of I do a lot of like vocal toning and like vocal work. You saw me like gargling and like warming up my voice before this conversation. And then I do a lot of other like somatic work with the gene keys. So yeah, those are some ways that I use it pretty frequently.
First of all, that tapping is brilliant. I use tapping every day and with all my clients, and I've never thought to use it with the frequency of the gene keys and literally just coding them into my body again. Like I know they're there, but my awareness around them, not so much there all the time. So I love that. And thank you for you just gave me a very gentle coaching session, because my my design sun and earth are 3029, and I'm hosting my first in-person retreat, which I have not yet signed the contract for because I'm terrified and I've been procrastinating, and I know I just need to fucking sign the contract and get on with it.
Yeah.
And it's just so scary because it's a lot of money. Yeah. And I need to commit. But you're right. I feel such a sense of lightness when I just do whatever it is. And so I wrote that down as my reminder. Thank you.
I love that. You're so welcome.
I love that so much. Okay. Now I forgot the next question I was gonna ask, because I was like, oh shit, she's speaking literally directly to me. Okay.
That's awesome.
If someone is completely new to Gene Keys here right now listening, they can't download it on your website yet, can they?
Not yet. It's coming though. So if you sign up now anyway, you can pull your chart in my website for free. You'll get the email when you can get the gene keys for free. And there's some more free stuff with the gene keys coming on my side, but not exact. You can download your human design chart, but not, which will tell you your gene keys, but not your gene keys chart.
Okay, perfect. So then we'll link both that and where, if you want your profile now, where you can download it now. And so where do you recommend that someone starts?
Yeah. So where I recommend people begin. So depending on like how curious you are about it and how your way of approaching it would be, I say, I love recommending source, obviously, but just with the caveat that source will speak very poetically and very flowery. And for a lot of people that works, for a lot of people that doesn't work. So definitely check them out. Go to genekeys.com/free dash profile, and you'll be able to pull your free profile. You'll get an audio of your conscious sun, which is your life's work in the gene keys, and that's a vibe. And you'll get 4 paragraphs on your activation sequence, and that's a vibe. So I do think that those are helpful. And I've only ever seen those in like I don't know where else they're doing readings like that. They're the only interpretations from the gene keys folks are in there or in their courses. If you want to take it to the next level, you can purchase the Gene Keys transmission book. I call it the transmission. It's the blue book. It's called Gene Keys Embodying Your Higher Purpose or Embracing Your Higher Purpose or something like that. It has a blue cover.
Nice.
And that
this
book,
massive Bible back here.
Yeah, so funny. I have it.
Embracing your high. This thing is huge and it's very inexpensive. Oh, nice.
This is how I have it. Oh, I like touched it by accident, but I refuse. I'm such an e-reader girly. Like I can't, because I take this with me everywhere and I'm just always in a Gene Keys contemplation. But if it would just lock and show the pretty cover again. Okay, well, whatever. And then I have a ton of free content on Gene Keys. So I have a whole little masterclass on, the beginnings of trying to interpret Gene Keys charts and sort of my process with it. And it's a great just foundational masterclass for understanding the chart. It's called Detangle. And then on my podcast, I have a podcast episode on the Gene Keys themselves and then on each sequence. So if you want to like hear why anyone would come and work with me is because I make it very applicable. So the Gene Keys folks themselves, the Richard Rudd, who is the founder of the Gene Keys. Here we go. Here's the cover again. Yay, so pretty. Richard Rudd, who is the founder and the messenger of this system, he is a poet. He's a poet. He's won a bunch of poetry awards. He won them even before he received the Gene Keys transmission. So you'll get a lot of that beautiful poetry in there, and I love it. And when you read that book, it was not written by a human. It was written through a human. It's definitely tapping into higher frequencies. It's a beautiful experience. You'll feel your DNA activated and you won't remember anything that you read, which is a really fun,
so which is true.
Right? That's how you know you're engaging with a living transmission. You won't remember the things that you read, but it'll make a difference in you somehow. It truly does activate your DNA. And then if you would like to work with it in a more practical way and you like to do both or maybe more leaning on one side, then that's why someone would come work with me. So then the other place I recommend, once you're excited and like you've gotten the free stuff, then you've gotten, the $20 book or however much it is these days, and you're like reading through the stuff and you're like, okay, I'm ready for more. I do recommend getting a Gene Keys reading. I feel like readings for anything, like if you're learning astrology, if you're learning human design, it's not because I'm a reader. It's just, it's easier to learn it for you first, like learn your own. But I've had like one of my students in my reader training, she just like found the book and just started reading it and was like, whoa, this is crazy. And I'm like, what? And then she realized she had a profile and that she could contemplate certain ones for her, which I find so interesting. I can't imagine just starting to read this book and not,
she did it like
not
backwards.
Knowing. No, but it's like, was it backwards or was that just like the right,
exactly.
direction for her? And it's just like, that's such a crazy experience that I did not have. But I do recommend, if you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed, just get a reading from someone you trust. There's not many of us out there, but go find a Gene Keys reader that you trust and get them to explain for you the ones that you should focus on that work for you, and to hopefully, if they're good, interpret it in a really practical way, so that you know what to do with it. You know what I mean? And how it shows up for you. But if you are really on the more poetic, way of thinking, then you will really enjoy the book. You'll really enjoy it, and you'll really enjoy just engaging with the Gene Keys folks. I lean into the poeticism every once in a while, but I have 6 planets in Capricorn, so we get a lot more practical.
I do love his little voice, not notes, but the like 20-minute long descriptions of each of the gates that I've listened to, or Gene Keys I've listened to so far. it does get a little poetic, but some of them really hit home. Like
Yeah.
my 8, he talks about the pressure that forms a diamond. And I'm like, oh, that one I had like a visceral reaction to from the life that
Yeah.
I've led and what I feel like I'm here to do.
Yeah.
Um, I would
Amazing.
love if we could take one of the gene keys, whether yours or mine, and kind of, well, you kind of did it with yours. So maybe the 8, because I know it really well. If we could like dissect it and show them how it shows up, how it's starting to show up more in me and why this knowledge can actually help. Because I feel like there's a big question sometimes with this kind of stuff of like, but why? Like, why is this important? And for me, I have 8 in a few different areas, one of which is my
Mm.
brand as well. And so for me, that's guiding me in work, but also just in life. Like when I heard the shadow frequency of the 8 being mediocrity, that gave me such validation because my whole life I felt like I had to somehow stand out. I needed to drive a car that wasn't like a super normal looking car. I just there I just
Yeah.
couldn't there was nothing mediocre about what I wanted, and I was made to feel bad for that, essentially. Like, I was trying to always steal the limelight or whatever, and I was like, "No, I just really wanna lead an exceptional life," and I'm a Taurus, I
Yeah.
like nice shit. Um,
Totally.
and so how can we go through dissecting something like that? Maybe, like, the
Yes.
gift. So what the gift is style, right?
Yes. So let me just pull some stuff up. I'm like thinking how to go through this. I have some thoughts. I'm pulling up some things. Okay. All right. So if you pull your human design chart, you can pull it from my website if you want. It's just mariahenning.com/chart. Um, you'll be looking at this key right here. So the top right gate, that's your conscious sun. So all of the black planets are essentially your astrology natal chart. So it's the astrology of the day that you were born. We're seeing the sun, we're seeing the earth, the north node of the moon, the south node of the moon itself, and all the way down. And then on the opposite side, we're seeing all the unconscious stuff, which is the astrology of 88 days / 88 degrees before you were born. So we're going to look at the top right gate there, and where it shows up in the Gene Keys chart, if you went ahead and pulled it from the Gene Keys website, and then future my website will also have this functionality. But the guys that build my app are still working on things with the Gene Keys folks themselves to like have that be legally available. I think is what they're doing right now. But anyway, from the Gene Keys website, this will be the top key that you're looking at. So it's called Life's Work. And so what we're looking at in 3 different places, we're seeing astrology. This is your sun sign. This is your Taurus sun. So we're like, starting from like, one level of depth. And then in human design, it's like, this is your conscious sun. So we get more specific. It's like the sun of the day that you were born. And then the Gene Keys were like, this is your life's work. Like, this is what you're here to do in your lifetime. And so we have, I'm going to pull it up over here. This is my app, the compendium, where I have all the information about these keys. And so we're just going to zoom in and just get real specific. And I built this guy on Notion. So we have gate 8. In human design, it's called contribution, the gate of contribution. And it's the diamond of the self, as what you were talking about before, the pressure to form a diamond. And it's in the throat center, it's in the channel of inspiration, and it's a projected energy. So it wants to be recognized for its individual contribution because it's in the individual circuit. We know that because if we look at the human design placement, it's right here in the individual stream. This is the channel. Here's gate 8 in the throat center. It wants to make an individual contribution. So when we go into the shadow gift and city, if we get like really specific here, let's keep it to, code on ring. This is also a Gene Keys thing. And then shadow gift and city. The shadow of mediocrity. So for you who are looking at your own chart, that shadow word, which for Adriana, is it Adriana actually or Adriana?
It depends on which of my parents you ask. My Spanish father would say Adriana, but anyone else Adriana.
Adriana, what do you prefer?
That's a great question. I think mostly Adriana.
Adriana. Okay, gotcha. That's funny because I speak Spanish, so I was like Adriana.
Yeah,
Um,
naturally.
But yeah, so for Adriana, her shadow is mediocrity here, but just look at your own, whatever word is showing up here. That shadow for all of us, shadow of life's work, is the primary challenge that we're going to face in our lifetime, and the main sort of like internal work that we're here to do. So it's like an internal shadow frequency. It's the main flavor of our shadow work in this lifetime. And so as you contemplate that for yourself, what does that mean? How is that going to show up for you? All of the shadow states are there because of some sort of perceived state of victimhood. So the people who have gate 8, they'll experience this mediocrity because they feel like they're victims of the mundane. So the mundane isn't bad. I actually love the mundane. My gene key, my conscious sun, is finding the mystical in the mundane. That's like one of the keynotes of it. And as I was saying, why I love these systems so much is they honor the mundane. They honor the day to day as a valid path for spiritual awakening. We don't have to go and, do 4 back-to-back ayahuasca ceremonies to have a spiritual experience. You can totally do that, but come back home and talk to your mom and then see if you're enlightened, right? So those day-to-day experiences, really mundane experiences, yeah, support. I know,
That would
yeah.
hit on so many levels. Yep.
Me too. um, yeah, very challenging. But anyway, that those mundane experiences, yeah, like support us in our growth. And so these people are not excited about that. They don't want to be mundane. They're like, no, I'm a victim of this mundane. I don't want to be mundane. I don't want my life to be mundane. I need to not be mundane, right? And so if they need to not be mundane, need is always victim states, then they'll become these artificial folks. So we have these reactive shadows. And if you're not seeing those here, you can find this information. You can go on my Insta and I posted all of the gates. So you can just scroll down and like find them, and you'll see the victim states and then reactive and repressive shadows. Insta used to have guides, and they don't have guides anymore, which is so sad because I had them all organized. I need to do like a highlight where it's like I just posted the 64 gates. That would be such a really unhinged day of me posting to 64 stories. But I think
that
that's
is annoying that they got rid of the guide.
I think I'll do that. So hopefully by the time you post this, I'll have done that already and annoyed the shit out of my audience by posting 64 stories in one day. Or maybe that would be a really amazing engagement tactic. I have no idea.
Exactly.
I'll post them all. You'll see them. If not, you can scroll down and find them. But reactive shadows are where we are like, essentially like lashing out in some way and sort of reacting to this, and oftentimes trying to escape that victim state through like a state of reactivity and action. And so for the person that doesn't want to be a victim of the mundane, the state of artificial is, well, and let me just make up something interesting that isn't me, but like artificially create someone interesting so that I don't have to feel like I'm not interesting enough, so that I don't have to feel like I'm boring or I'm mundane. So I'm going to artificially get this thing here, get this tattoo, get this piercing, but that's not actually like me and like my individual, contribution or self-expression. I just think I need to like look this way. And then the opposite side is repressed shadow states. Repressed shadow states are when we just in general have a state of repressed life force. So they're sort of like depressive states, and states of almost like defeat and like not, sort of giving up and succumbing to this victim oppression, and so the person who is oppressed by a victim, being a victim of the mundane and has no will, no will left. That sounds really dramatic, but yeah, like feels very repressed in their life force, will become these wooden individuals. I'm just boring. What's the point? I don't have anything to contribute. I'm not interesting enough. And for a lot of these people, this is the throat center, right? So it's like, and Taurus rules the throat. It's another really interesting, fun astrology layering of human design. All of the gates in the throat center are Gemini or Taurus. Gemini is like communication and thinking, and Taurus literally rules the throat. So I just think it's funny. But for these people, it's like, I'm not saying it in an interesting enough way. I don't have an individual or an interesting enough like vocal contribution. So also, can I hear you still? I feel like I lost the audio.
Did you? I can hear you.
Oh no. Oh, I can hear you now. Okay, good. My audio changed a little bit. But yes, so these people might have a fear of like, I'm not saying it in an interesting enough way. Like what I have to say is not cool, is not unique, it's not like special enough. So For those of you that are playing along and sort of looking at your own chart, and you've gone to my Instagram at by Maria Henning, and you've looked for these pages, these posts with the victim states, repressed and reactive state, the contemplation would be, do you find yourself more repressed or more reactive? Oftentimes the answer is both, but maybe leaning more towards one at this exact time. But sometimes people are like, oh, I've never really been in the repressed state. I've always been reactive, or vice versa. And all that to say, these four keys here, because there's four ways to look at the shadow, right? We have the main shadow, in your case, Adriana, being mediocrity. And then we have the victim reason why we're there. We have victim of the mundane. We have either repressed of wooden and reactive of artificial. These four, keys, these four frequencies, mainly denoted by mediocrity, is saying this is your main challenge in this lifetime, this main internal sort of flavor of shadow work that you're going to have to work with and love on and deal with your whole life.
And I have been through all of them.
Yeah.
I don't know about exquisiteness yet, but I've been through all of the others.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's many ways to, I think the $1 million question is, how do you shift from shadow to gift? And that is going to look different every single time. But the main key is you must release victimhood. You cannot be a victim if you want to be in a gift state, because gift states are states of relaxed nervous system, rest and digest, power, human, genius, human service. And so they're states of empowerment. So we can't be victims while trying to give a gift and expressing our gifts and really expressing our magic. And so releasing, in your case, being a victim of the mundane, and for anyone listening, look at your own victim theme, releasing that, which again, that's the black box. How do you do that? That I do my tapping, I do my journaling, I do my embodiment work. There's lots of different ways to do that. There's actions you could take, but you need to discover it for yourself, what your own process is. Gene Keys would just say, just to contemplate it. Releasing that will get you into a state of being, into a state of gift. And for you, that's style. And style, and the gift word for anyone, where it looks, where it is in their life's work, that is the main frequency of the doing in your life. That is the main sort of like legacy, soul legacy, life's work that you're going to leave behind. It'll be encoded with this frequency. And so for you, anything that you do will be encoded with a very unique style, with a very unique way of being and way of expressing and way of contributing. And so what people will remember about you is how unique it all was, when it all came down to it. That's a very simple way of saying it, but
I hope so.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that you wrapped in the nervous system with that, because really, if you want to renegotiate anything in your body, any of your trauma, any of your shadows, your victimhood, it starts with the regulated nervous system. And that is why I do tapping with clients. And I mean, some breath work, but I'm not a facilitator, so very minor. Anything to like release, because I found a lot of the education-based human design and stuff like that, without actually releasing anything in my body, was just piling on knowledge and nothing was actually changing. Yeah. The awareness is great. Like how in Gene Keys, they talk about contemplation. I do think that awareness can bring you very far when it comes to Gene Keys. But when it comes to like releasing, and if you feel like you keep hitting a block or hitting a wall, there is something there. There's a story there, there's trauma there, whatever it is that you need to release and move through. But really, once you have the awareness, like once someone goes and looks up just their life's work and just starts there, and every day when you start to notice if you are acting a little weird or feeling down or feeling like you're victimizing everything, then, oh, wait a second, I'm falling into the shadow here. And just that moment can change everything. So I do think awareness and contemplation is huge. And nervous system.
Yes, definitely. And sort of I think that the understanding with contemplation is that it'll naturally lead you to the right actions for you. It won't just be mental all the time. That's where it actually begins. Like I was saying, the mental, then emotional, then physical contemplation is the art of contemplation that they walk you through. Richard Rudd would say, as he says often in his podcast episodes and interviews, that actually the little 100-page book of the art of contemplation is actually his opus, which I'm like, what?
I haven't read that one.
Oh, your opus, my guy. It's a really great book. It's a really great book, and it's a really clear sort of way to engage with artfully contemplating. And to sort of finish that off, what is contemplation in a simple way? It's really the middle path between concentration and meditation, where concentration is to focus on a thought, very masculine, very just let me just look at this and concentrate on act on this, act, just spend, very, very active in this thinking. And then meditation is just in this, right? There's many different ways of meditation. Just in this example, we're using the definition of let thought pass through. So completely feminine, not holding on to anything, very passive. The art of contemplation is the middle way. So sometimes I spend time thinking on it. Sometimes I just let it go. Sometimes I spend time thinking on it. Sometimes I let it go. And then all of a sudden I get these insights, that just show up. And then those insights cause me to think in a different way. And then if I think in a different way, I feel different. And then if I feel different, I act different. So that's the sort of mental, emotional, and then physical. And the final state is like merging. So merging meaning, my internal world is now congruent with my external world. I might have thought and felt a certain way, but once I act and I merge, now my actions are forever different. And so therefore I'm a different person. And so that's how the gene key sort of like works their way in you.
Just kind of a little bit like that. That
It's a
was
little bit
really
like that.
beautifully said. I loved it. You're really good at explaining. You're a good teacher. Yes. Okay. Awesome.
Thank you.
Where can people connect with you and get their own Gene Keys reading and all that good stuff?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking. So I primarily hang out on Insta at by Maria Henning. I have my own podcast as well. It's called Shortcuts to Mastery, and I talk a lot about gene keys, things like that. And all of the links you can find at my on my Insta bio. So you can just go there. Send me a DM too if you're curious. Let me know if you came from this podcast. I would love to connect with you, and that's where we can connect, and that's where you can get a reading. Is all through the links in my bio on my Instagram.
And then go through her 64 things and stories and her highlights
Yes.
to see all the Gene Keys. Amazing.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here. Is there anything that we didn't touch on that you wanted to say?
We didn't touch on the city. The city is the divine frequency, and all that to say, they're very difficult to describe because they're states of enlightenment. And for a lot of newcomers, they'll think, oh, that's the goal. I need to get to that state. And that's actually not necessarily true. It would be to get to a state of divine gift, you need to release the ego. And it's hard to be in an ego death state 24/7, is it not? So just know that the cities are these divine gifts that are always there. They're going to be, appearing along the way. They're going to be very close to you, but really honestly focusing on alchemizing shadows into gifts and spending more and more of your time in gift frequencies is a more, friendly and approachable way to approach the gene keys. If you're thinking, I need to be enlightened all the time in exquisiteness and unity and ascension and awakening and clarity, it's like, okay, that's kind of aggressive. Just stick to the gifts and just know that the cities are always there with you, supporting you. And you'll have beautiful ego death moments in meditations, maybe even in 4 back-to-back ayahuasca ceremonies if you choose to do that path, and you'll experience those beautiful frequencies. And then it's back to you to ground those into gifts and in the way that you be and do and feel in the world. And that's the last thing I wanted to say. So thank you so much for that question.
The gift is probably a lot easier to notice in your day-to-day life. And noticing that, I feel like, is such a win. And you just keep stacking your wins every time you notice, oh, I'm in the gift of style. That rebel with the cause. It feels really good. Versus I feel like feeling the frequency of the enlightened state maybe I'm guessing would be a little bit harder and less farther few in between. So there's less of those wins. And I really like to stack my wins. That's what I need.
Yes, definitely. But yeah, no, that's it. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks for listening. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. I appreciate you.